September 3rd, 2012, a hot Monday morning in Medellin, Colombia. A 69-year-old woman walks out of a butcher shop in the Belén neighborhood holding two heavy plastic bags full of meat. She's overweight, limping slightly with a cane, hair freshly permed, wearing a simple floral blouse and black slacks. Nothing about her screams danger. She looks like any other abuela on her way home to cook lunch. Two men on a red motorcycle come screaming down the street. The bike slows just long enough for the guy on the back to raise a pistol and fire 2 shots straight into her head. She collapses instantly, blood mixing with the sawdust on the sidewalk. The motorcycle guns it and vanishes into traffic. No one is ever arrested. The hit is clean, professional, and instantly recognizable to every cop and criminal in Colombia, because that woman pioneered that exact style of murder almost 40 years earlier and used it on hundreds of people. Her name was Griselda Blanco Restrepo. In Colombia, they called her La Madrina, the Godmother. In Miami, they called her the Black Widow. Pablo Escobar, the most famous drug lord who ever lived, once said she was the only person in the entire narcotics trade who genuinely terrified him. This is the complete story of how a dirt-poor slum girl became the queen of cocaine, made billions, turned Miami into a slaughterhouse, and finally died exactly the way she had killed so many others. Before we dive in, quick warning. This episode contains violence, murder, and drug trafficking details. Listener discretion is advised. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Every week we drop a full-length true crime documentary you can listen to like a podcast. Let's begin. Griselda was born on February 15th, 1943, in a cardboard and tin shack outside Cartagena. Her mother, Ana Lucia Restrepo, was 13 years old, already a prostitute and a violent alcoholic. There was no father on the birth certificate, and probably no father in the picture at all. When Griselda was 3, Ana Lucia dragged her to Medellin and dumped her in one of the worst slums in the city, a barrio crawling with thieves, killers, and soldiers left over from La Violencia, the civil war that had already killed 200,000 Colombians. Home was a single room with a dirt floor. Electricity was stolen from a street lamp, water came from a communal tap 2 blocks away, and beatings from whatever man was paying Ana Lucia that week were a daily fact of life. By age 8, Griselda was running with street gangs, pickpocketing tourists, and learning that violence was the fastest way to get respect. At 11 comes the story every DEA agent repeats. Griselda and a group of older boys kidnapped the young son of a wealthy coffee grower. They demanded ransom. The family stalled. Griselda took the boy into an alley, put a pistol to his head, pulled the trigger, and left the body for the dogs. No arrest was ever made, no evidence ever found, but the legend stuck to her like a shadow for the rest of her life. True or not, she never denied it. 14 years old, and she was already turning tricks in the park to eat. 16, and she married Carlos Trujillo, a low-level forger and marijuana smuggler. They had 3 sons in quick succession: Dixon, Uber, and Osvaldo. Carlos wanted a quiet life. Griselda wanted money and power. The marriage ended the way most things around Griselda ended. Carlos vanished, and everyone in the barrio knew she had paid to have him shot. Husband number 1 in the ground. In the late 60s, she met Alberto Bravo, a real cocaine trafficker with connections to the first primitive smuggling rings. They married and in 1971 fled Colombia for Queens, New York, with forged papers and a suitcase full of cash. This is where Griselda turned from street hustler to criminal genius. While other traffickers were still stuffing coke into car tires and fruit shipments, Griselda recruited dozens of beautiful Colombian women, dressed them in designer clothes, and had lingerie specially sewn with hidden compartments. Bras, girdles, even platform shoes lined with pure cocaine. A single mule could walk through customs at JFK carrying 2 kilos taped to her body. 10 mules a week meant 20 kilos, $1 million profit after expenses. By 1973, she had 50 mules rotating in and out of New York every single day. She dressed all in black, drove a black Mercedes, wore massive gold jewelry, and had a huge black widow spider tattooed across her belly. She named her organization the Black Widow Corporation. Money poured in so fast she literally could not count it. Detectives later estimated she was clearing $80 million a month in cash, more than any cartel in history up to that point. Adjusted for inflation, that is almost $300 million a month in today's money. But Griselda became convinced Alberto was skimming. On Valentine's Day, 1975, her 32nd birthday, she asked him to meet her in a parking lot in Bogota to celebrate. She wore a long black coat. Underneath was a chrome .38 revolver strapped to her thigh and 6 armed bodyguards hiding behind cars. When Alberto stepped out smiling with a bottle of champagne, Griselda threw open the coat and screamed Feliz San Valentin, "Hijo de puta!" She emptied all 6 rounds into his chest. His 2 bodyguards opened fire. Bullets tore through her stomach, her shoulder, and 1 round scalped the top of her head. Bleeding like a stuck pig, she still managed to kill both gunmen and limp to a waiting car. Surgeons saved her life with over 100 stitches. Alberto was buried the next day. From that moment on, no one ever dared steal from Griselda again. With Alberto dead, she moved the entire operation to Miami. That is when the city went insane. Between 1978 and 1982, Miami recorded more murders than New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles combined. Drive-by shootings in shopping malls at noon, bodies left in phone booths, gun battles on the freeway that shut down I-95 for hours. The press started calling them the cocaine cowboys, and Griselda was patient zero. Her favorite method was the motorcycle hit. 2 men on a cheap Honda, passenger with a Mac 10 or an Uzi, pull up next to the target at a red light, empty the magazine, and disappear before anyone could even dial 911. She ordered so many of those hits that the medical examiner ran out of refrigerated drawers. She killed for business. She killed for disrespect. She killed because she felt like it. One Colombian importer owed her $1.8 million and kept making excuses. Her main enforcer, a baby-faced psychopath named Jorge Ayala, nicknamed Reevy, kidnapped the man's 2-year-old son from preschool. The boy was delivered back to the father in a cardboard box with 1 bullet in the forehead and a note that said, "Pay up, or the rest of the family comes back in separate boxes." The money was wired the same afternoon. She married a 3rd time, a handsome hitman named Dario Sepulveda. They had 1 son together, and Griselda named him Michael Corleone Blanco after her favorite movie character. When Dario decided he had had enough of the life and tried to take little Michael back to Colombia, Griselda sent a team of killers. Dario was gunned down in front of the 4-year-old boy in a Medellin parking lot. At the absolute peak, she was importing 3 tons of cocaine every single month. Her parties at the Mutiny Club in Coconut Grove became legend. Champagne fountains filled with cocaine instead of champagne. Solid gold machine guns handed out as party favors. Strippers dancing naked on tables while armed guards with Uzis stood at every exit. She once threw a birthday party for Michael where the cake was shaped like an AK-47 and the piñata was stuffed with $100 bills and tiny vials of coke. The violence got so bad that Miami morgues started keeping bodies in refrigerated rental trucks parked out back because they had no more space inside. In July 1979, alone there were 23 drug-related murders in Dade County. The Dadeland Mall shooting became the most famous. Two of Griselda's gunmen walked into a liquor store in broad daylight and sprayed the place with machine gun fire, killing 2 people and wounding several others, then strolled out like they were buying milk. The parking lot looked like a war zone. The DEA finally formed a special task force just to take her down, Centec 26. They worked for years turning her mules and lieutenants. The key was Reevy. After he was arrested for a different murder, the feds offered him a deal. He took it and told them everything. Dates, names, locations, prices, bodies. On February 17th, 1985, 50 agents in raid jackets kicked in the doors of her mansion in Irvine, California, while she was asleep. They found $27 million in cash buried in plastic drums in the backyard, 400 kilos hidden in a false wall in the garage, and a spiral notebook that listed every single murder she had ever ordered, complete with prices paid to the killers. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison on cocaine charges and 3 concurrent 20-year sentences for murder. Even behind bars, she refused to slow down. Guards smuggled cocaine, cell phones, and cash to her cell. She ran a store out of her prison cell, selling drugs and protection to other inmates. She had multiple affairs with female prisoners, and when one of them tried to end the relationship, Griselda paid another inmate to stab the woman to death in the showers. In 2002, she suffered a major heart attack and convinced the prison doctors she was too sick to stay locked up. After 19 years inside, she was released on compassionate grounds and immediately deported back to Colombia. She landed in Medellin broke, diabetic, and walking with a cane. The U.S. government had seized every dollar she ever made. Her sons had followed her into the business and paid the ultimate price. Dixon was shot to death in 1991. Uber was gunned down in a nightclub in 1993. Osvaldo was murdered in a drive-by in 2000. Only Michael Corleone Blanco survived, and even he spent years in and out of prison before going straight. For the last 8 years of her life, Griselda lived in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Medellin. She rented a small apartment, went to church every Sunday, dyed her hair, and told neighbors she was just a retired businesswoman who wanted to die peacefully surrounded by grandchildren. She gave money to orphanages and local schools, trying to buy a little forgiveness. On the morning of September the 3rd, 2012, she followed her usual routine: hair salon, then the butcher shop on Calle 35 for fresh meat to cook for lunch. As she stepped out onto the sidewalk carrying 2 plastic bags, the red motorcycle pulled up exactly like hundreds she had ordered. The passenger raised a pistol and fired 2 shots into her head at point-blank range. She was dead before she hit the ground. The killers sped away and were never identified. Colombian newspapers the next day all ran the same headline: Poetic Justice. Griselda Blanco, the woman who invented the motorcycle assassination, the woman who flooded the United States with billions of dollars worth of cocaine, the woman who left husbands, rivals, innocent bystanders, and even little children in body bags without a second thought, finally received the exact ending she had written for hundreds of others. She was 69 years old.